now call the June 25th, 2025 regular Historic Preservation Commission meeting to order. This meeting has been posted in accordance with Nevada open meeting law. All voting members are present, and we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is the initial comment period. Public comment during this portion of the meeting must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment. And if there's anyone in the audience who at this time wishes to make a comment, please come forward. Seeing that there are no comments either on the phone or in the audience, let's move on. Agenda item 1, approval of the minutes of the May 28th, 2025 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Agenda item number 2, for possible action, commission discussion regarding the World War II Monument Memorial Flagpole in Robert Broadbent Memorial Park.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So at last month's meeting, the Commission had asked that this item be added to the agenda. And so in addition to that, Chair Davenport had provided several questions as it relates to the memorial flagpole and World War II monument. You'll find in your staff report background information on the flagpole and memorial. Also, we had Broadbent do additional research regarding the history and to answer the questions that Chairman Davenport raised. And we have responses in the staff report, and we have Courtney Mooney and Matthew Johns here in the audience to help answer Commission questions regarding this flagpole and monument. And with that, we could take questions, or I could have Northwind do kind of a brief overview of the history and responses to your questions. Matthew Johns.
Matthew Johns' role.
To the podium.
Sorry.
I am a project historian for Broadbent Associates.
Okay.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're waiting for you to give us an overview.
Sorry. My apologies. So the flagpole and the plaque was originally commissioned and received dedication on July 4th, 1959. The plaque does commemorate the names of the gentlemen who lost their lives during World War II and the Korean War. It is a complete list. We did go through and verify it as well. It was originally commissioned with or dedicated on the day with the Damboree, the 11th annual Damboree here in Boulder City, done by Legion Post 31, and it was commissioned through them, and It was even given a dedication speech from the governor at the time.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed reading the history. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
More people need to know about that. But it was great.
I don't know if this is a question for you. I'm curious, how do we add this to the local register? What information or documentation or approval is required for that?
So in 1127.4 of the city code, there are procedures for historic property recommendations, which include structures. And so what it would involve is the commission in a future agenda item recommending its designation. And then that would go on to the city council for final consideration. And as noted in the staff report, it's Broadbent's recommendation that it could be added to the local registry. So that would be the process.
Okay. Do you know if it, can it be nominated to the local register where it stands, or if it's moved? If it happens to be moved?
I'd probably have Ms. Mooney respond to that. In her assessment, relocation does have some impact on historical significance.
And I would second that as well. You start getting into complications with DOI standards if you move and try to designate.
But maybe Ms. Mooney can elaborate.
Yes. Hi, Chair and Commission. This is Courtney Mooney for the record. I found that, so just to be clear, Chair Davenport, you're asking if the flagpole were to be moved, would it still be eligible for listing on the local register?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see, I did not research that question in the the chapter for historic preservation, so I apologize. I think that I might have misunderstood because we were concerned about whether the flagpole had already been moved, and we think that it's in its original location. So I would have to just kind of take a look at that chapter and see if there's any language in there about historic resources that have been moved and if they're still eligible for the local register. Which I can do right now if you, it will only take me a minute if another discussion wants to be had.
And the reason, two reasons I'm asking is if we have to move it for whatever reason, I would like to consider how that affects its listing on the local register, but also, wouldn't it have to be associated with a site in order to, so as not to affect, or that, would that affect its registry on the local register? If it's just, we're looking at it as a quote-unquote object or a structure in and of itself, or are we looking at it from the standpoint of its location in Broadbent?
So I feel like there are two different approaches. The National Register is pretty clear about how to treat commemorative properties, which is what I reviewed this under. And the National Register states that the significance doesn't really come with the event that the object is associated with. It's more about, the architectural value of the monument itself. And so I didn't really think that monument would qualify for criterion C. So then I, started looking at the local register, and I think that it meets these, criteria that are listed here. And once again, I didn't look at this to see if there was any language in the local, the zoning code about moved resources, which I can do right now. But I think that if it stays where it's at, it does qualify for the local register under these criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just.
I'd like to make a comment about that. Up until a couple of years ago, I was a contract employee with the Nevada Department of Veteran Services. And one of my assignments while I was with them, I spent 2 or 3 years or 4 years maybe traveling around the state, taking photographs of all the veterans memorials within the state. Some of them are hidden behind bushes. They've been overgrown. Nobody knew they were there. But of course, a lot of them are right out in the open. Unfortunately, I didn't know about this. If I did, I would have included that in my project. Anyway, the Veterans Department, they have all the photos, all the information. They've changed directors a couple of times, and so the director that gave me the assignment is no longer there, and they haven't really done anything with all the work I did. But I'm just making the comment that this would have been something to be included. And I know that the the Nevada Department of Veteran Services, although they're not the registry and they're not what we consider necessarily an official register of historic places, but they would be very interested in this. I'm sure of that. And I'm going to mention this to them. I'm still in touch with some of the people there. And I know they would very much want to have this preserved in some way. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. I have another question, I think, for Broadbent, and that is this potentially eligible for the state register? Because from what I read, it was the first 49-star flag that was flown in the state of Nevada. Does that count for anything?
I think it would be, I can certainly look into that. I think it would be a much easier sell for the local register. I think the state register uses very similar criteria as the national register, but I can certainly, look into that for the next meeting. I did do a quick scan of the zoning code for the historic preservation chapter, and there's nothing in there about moved properties that under this context.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just piggyback on Courtney here real quick. If you haven't been paying attention, the Nevada Board of Museums and History is being very particular on their reviews of properties eligible for both state and national inclusion. So they're really going through things with a fine comb to make sure it meets all the criteria.
And then I wanted to clarify, I think one of my questions was, were there any additional considerations of the flagpole in its relation to the designation of Boulder City and Henderson as an American World War II heritage city? And I wasn't asking where it would be in relation to a sign. I just was wondering, is there something that Henderson and Boulder City are doing to identify World War II resources, and how would it relate to that kind of an inventory or memorialization? And maybe we don't know at this point because we're still working together with Henderson perhaps on this.
Yeah, our initial focus is moving forward with the signage along the corridor, and Nikisha was successful in receiving a $10,000 grant award, and so the next steps are to coordinate with Henderson in the erection of the signage along Veterans Memorial Parkway and Boulder City Parkway into Henderson. But certainly, we're going to continue to have discussions with Henderson on other ways to recognize the city's contributions to World War II.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? So I guess the next step is to ask Courtney to answer those questions about the state register, if it's eligible or not. And then do we ask her to write a local register nomination form, or?
When we get to the agenda item where you ask for new agenda items for next month, you would ask to put that on next month's agenda to give that direction.
Gotcha. All right, then moving on to agenda 3. Commission discussion regarding a historic district map in Boulder City.
Yeah, so this was asked of the commission last month, and so it's your opportunity to have that conversation. We did provide to you paper copies of the district map. The district map is also at the back for the benefit of the public. It is on the city's website. It is featured frequently in community events associated with historic preservation, like Historic Preservation Day. But certainly looking for the conversation with the commission.
I have some comments, please. Prior to last month's meeting where we brought this idea of a map, where I brought it up, a couple of months prior to that, I spoke with Ms. Lyon. We were discussing the upcoming meeting with realtors. And I had suggested to her at that time, months ago, that we might have some kind of a map to give realtors. And I had suggested at that time that we have something, not a 8 by 10 piece of paper, but something larger, something colorful, something that really stands out. This map doesn't even, it's not even 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11. It's even smaller than that. It's just on a bigger piece of paper. And it's very small and it's very limited and it's difficult to read. I guess when I had suggested a map, I suggested it be larger, it be more detailed, and this just doesn't really cover my suggestion. So I don't know if that can be, we can do anything about that, but I just wanted to make that comment.
I would counter that and say every realtor I know works digitally these days, and so they're more likely to go pull the file off the website and use that way. And they're using databases that show where the property is, so all they need is a quick reference to check against whether that property is in the historic district or not. So from my opinion, I think the map suits that purpose just fine if the goal is to be informed realtors.
Yeah, and just as a reminder to the commission, one of the things that Nikisha does is every time a property is listed in the historic district, she contacts the realtor to remind them of the location in the district and to provide them resources. In addition, every realtor that works in the community received a link to the workshop for realtors that provides similar information to make them aware of what's out there, regulations, and resources.
Do you have a sense of how many people walk in to your offices to request information, whether it's a map or any historic information versus what's available online? And I'm thinking of maybe people who are elderly, sight impaired, don't know where to go because sometimes the website's a little convoluted. But
I would say that it's pretty minimal. Maybe a couple times a month, I would have somebody walk in and they're looking to purchase a home. It's in the historic district. They want further information, and then we talk about the resources we have. I'm able to print things for them as well. Yeah.
So do you print stuff off of our website, or do you also have additional information that isn't really identified on the website, such as building records?
Oh, I usually just go directly to the website and print it off. Yeah, so.
Aren't there building files?
Yeah, we do have the building file, so if they did request that separately through like a public records request, we'd be able to send that over to them. It kind of just depends on the size of the building file. I don't have that request very often. If we do, it's digital through the city clerk's office.
And in summary, what do those building files contain?
So it would be the building permit history of that specific property, if the building permits were pulled, so whatever was pulled and what we have on record for it.
Does it also have the original sale price when Bureau of Reclamation handed it over to the city? I found those, it's like a tax document or something like to that effect. And
I have never seen that in there.
It's in the files, but you have to dig really deep
Yeah.
to get to it. Okay.
So Blair,
I don't know if we can take
okay, no problem.
comments afterwards,
I'll
but
say that.
thank you.
Based off of what Chuck was talking about, that's kind of what I recall last when he brought it up. And I know that the Chamber of Commerce years ago used to make maps that were very artistic and fun, colorful. I was going to bring one in, but then I forgot it. And maybe we can do something like that. It's poster size so that they can put them inside the realtor's office. It'd be a lot of fun, I think, for them, and make the historic district stand out for them when people are going into their real estate office and they might be interested in a historic property.
Well, certainly I can engage with local realtors to see if that's something that they would find valuable. I certainly wouldn't want the city to spend resources and time if the realtors aren't going to find any value in it with their clients. But I'm happy to reach out to them and find out how are their clients engaging them these days. So much of what we do is electronic. For example, with city transactions, it's mostly electronic. All building permits are submitted electronically. They're not paper. And so I would be happy to reach out to them to find out if they would see value in having a large paper copy of the historic district map.
A nice one, a colorful one, an artistic one, not this.
What
Yep.
would be the purpose in that?
It lets them know that we do have the historic district and that, and maybe help them engage in wanting to buy property in it and restore property in the historic district. Because there are a lot of people who like to restore instead of rebuild or renovate and modernize.
I see that if you spend all of that time and energy and money on something like that, it changes so often that it would be obsolete.
And
so
not to
going
mention,
digitally
who,
is much
who's
better.
even going into realtor offices anymore? Like when my wife and I bought our house last September, we never even went into a realtor office.
Well, also, I think the historic district is not going to change. The boundaries are not going to change. And that's what I think we're talking about here, is to show the boundaries, not to necessarily show every individual property. So we don't have to worry about spending money and then have it become obsolete a week later because a property got sold or whatever. So I think the idea is to have something that looks presentable, that looks historic, that looks important. Even though fewer people walk into real estate offices today maybe than 50 years ago, but we still got a lot of people that walk into offices, that come in and they see a map on the wall that looks interesting, that looks inviting. They ask, what is it? Where is it? Where are the properties? Or what's involved with a historic property? I think it would be a great advantage to the city and to the realtors to have that hanging in the office. A really nice, presentable, artistic, eye-catching piece of art that shows the boundaries and shows the names of the streets on the boundaries. We have some senior citizens come in, they couldn't even read this. A lot of young folks couldn't even read this. The print is so small. So, Mr. Maves, do we need a motion to have you contact realtors with this information?
No, I'm happy to reach out to them.
Okay.
But again, it would be under the conditions that, one, they would find it valuable, and two, they would display it. I would not want the city to expend resources on this, and they take copies and put them away and they never utilize them. So I'm happy to survey realtors on their value in this type of product.
Okay.
I would like to say one more thing about that. I don't think it has to be limited to just realtors. It could be put in the senior center. It can be put inside of the Boulder Dam Credit Union. It's it's something or an opportunity for us to show pride in our historic district. The more pride we show in the historic district, the more pride other people are going to show in the historic district, because we're making it mean something.
I'm happy to engage other businesses as well, but again, under the same conditions, because if they're not willing to display it, then it's not accomplishing its purpose.
Additionally, we do have our interactive map that we, like Northwind did create for us last year that won an award, that is on the website, and it is through ArcGIS. You're able to pull the boundary from there, and you can print a map that shows the aerial view of the city. We're looking into if we could add the street names to it now, so we do have that resource available, and if anyone in the community needs help doing that, I'm always available to do that when I'm here in the office, so.
Do you have a copy of that
I do.
brochure, and could you maybe talk
I have
to
a
Michael
copy,
about
it's
it?
a poster, and I do have a copy of it, and I will bring it in for you.
Because I don't recall a poster, I recall there was a brochure that when you opened it up, then.
No, it's a poster, it's about this big,
Interesting.
and the Chamber of Commerce used to do it yearly, and the only reason I know they did it is because as far as display, my husband had it displayed in his office over on Foothill, because it was artistic, and he enjoyed it, and I had a hard time getting it from him. He didn't want to give it to me to bring it, and I forgot. Because here's my brain. That's the fibromyalgia. And who knows, maybe we can even see if the Chamber of Commerce is willing to make the maps still. And that would take the burden of cost away from us.
Do you happen to know if the map is currently on the Chamber's website? Do they?
You know, it's pretty old,
Okay.
so I don't know, but I will bring it in.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, all right, moving on to agenda item 4. Update on the implementation of the commission's goals and priorities.
This is the monthly update on the Commission's goals and priorities. Areas in bold are new additions, and I can answer any questions.
I just want to say thank you for doing the items in bold. It really helps us track where we're going and what we're doing.
Looks good.
I had a question about goal 3.1 and 3.2. And I'm not sure if this is a request to city staff or if we should discuss this, but when you read the results or the status, it of course says it's ongoing, but the description kind of insinuates that we prioritize this one and only thing in order to meet this goal, meaning doing a determination of eligibility and a nomination to the National Register for the Old Airport hangar. But my recollection of our discussion in March was we prioritized that, yes, to do that first, but then we were going to move on to the other tasks that Broadbent had outlined. And I would like to somehow put somewhere, in this status that, yes, this is our first priority. However, when this is done, perhaps, or we're also going to continue to consider, the tasks that Broadbent had suggested.
Yeah, we can happily put that in there.
And in addition to that, I think we also discussed that how we were going to go about that was that the city would seek funding, outside state or federal funding, along with meeting the funds that are in place for Broadbent, for Broadbent's, I guess, contract, right? So So if we could somehow get something like that in there so that it's not forgotten, and it's on our list of continually reminding ourselves that, we still have more to do just besides the airport hangar. So,
Correct, and that's why it's noted as ongoing and not completed.
but I think
Yeah, we
there's
can add
some
that.
steps that are pretty close to continuing that ongoing that I don't want to lose, so
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you.
I noticed the date here is listed for the end of the calendar year. I just want to tailor expectations of the commission. The cultural and historic preservation grants right now have taken major hits at both the state and federal levels, so I would not expect funding to be readily available.
Which is maybe a discussion, I don't know for this or somewhere else, but so do we, is that a request that we should make, or should that be an agenda item to say, please start seeking funding for meeting completion of goal 3.1 and 3.2?
Yeah, that could be a future agenda item.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 5. Discussion, update on the status of properties in the historic district or other potentially eligible properties.
So similarly with the goals, this is a monthly report, and it notes new items in bold, and we can answer any questions.
No comments? All right. All right. Final agenda item. Item number 6, for possible action, commission discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Commission meetings.
Oh, I have a suggestion I'd like to bring up for the next meeting regarding the correspondence that we recently received, that Ms. Lyon sent us a copy from
Robin Baker.
from Robin Baker, that we consider having an advocate to be a spokesperson for the historic district. I'd like to put that on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
I second it. If it has to be seconded, I don't know.
Yeah, it has to be obviously the consensus of the voting members of the commission of what you want to agendize for the next meeting. So if there's a consensus, that can be added to the next meeting.
Well, Ms. Baker has sent us a significant number of correspondence, and I think it'd be respectful to devote some time to at least allow the commission an opportunity to respond to her so she doesn't get ignored.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you. So please put that on the agenda.
Yes.
I'd like to add to the agenda, I guess, a recap of Broadbent's ability, or what their plans are for completing a local register nomination for the flagpole.
Okay.
And possibly the state register, if applicable. Another agenda item is to ask city staff to request or begin requesting state and/or federal grant funding for completing goals number 3.1 and 3.2. As well as how do we add it to the city's budget? how do we utilize city funds or request city funds for completing 3.1 and 3.2?
We can combine those in that agenda item.
Sounds great.
Just a thought, but on the previous point you brought up about reviewing broadband, Michael, it might be helpful if we list it on the agenda as a item for possible action, not just discussion. That way, if we're ready to move at that time, we don't have to postpone for another month as well.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, with which one?
The review of the broadband report in relation to nominating the flagpole for local and possible state status. If the information is available at that time, it may be helpful to list the item on the agenda as an item for possible action in accordance with the public meeting law. That way, we don't have to postpone for another month if we're ready to take action. It's not just listed as a discussion item.
Yeah, agreed. I think that was the intent I got, is that you want an agenda item to make a recommendation to the city council for a local designation.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
I knew we'd get there. Any other agenda items? Did you want to continue the discussion about the handout or the map?
Yes. I would like to continue the discussion about the map.
And I guess maybe get an update from you, Michael, with your reaching out to realtors and possibly other stakeholders who may be interested in something like that.
Yes.
Or were you going to wait until you see the map first before you reach out to them?
No. The intent here is to see if there's interest
Prior to.
by all the parties before we would ever create a map or spend resources. So, yeah, we'll put that on the agenda.
Thank you. Any other agenda items, questions, comments? All righty, thank you. All right, so now is the final comment period for the evening. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on any topic. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to come forward, please do. Thank you.
My name is Donna Rainey, and hi, Dawn. Hi. Haven't seen you in forever. And I'm a newbie here. I only came in 1981. My husband was born and raised here. He was born in the old hospital, and his parents were 31ers. So, it's the history of this place. I was never really a history buff. I'm originally from the Florida Keys, so my idea of a house was palm fronds and there's the ocean. And this, to turn me into a desert person and with the history, and, when I joined St. Christopher's, everything, they had kept records, but they were in paper sacks or cardboard boxes, and I think they were asking me another question when they asked me to be the historian, because I raised my hand and then went home and all this stuff was on my front porch. But I am so excited that we were picked for the 2025 Historic Preservation Award, because, and it's not anyone now, we deserve it, but not as much as the people that brought up that church. The bishop and Father Keene came from Vegas, would go visit the workers at the dams, their campsites, and it was those fellows that said, we'd like to have a church building instead of just sitting on the rocks out there, every Sunday or whenever they could come out. And that's where the idea started, and developed. And there was a lot of things going on. They had meetings, they had church in the Union Pacific bus station, and, in people's homes. And it just developed where a lot of people, you know, okay, there's a dam in Boulder City. Well, there's a dam in Arizona, there's a dam in Washington. What's the big deal? But it is a big deal. Once you come here, you realize what a big deal all of that is and what everybody went through. And I just love it. And I know that there was a fellow that lived in Boulder in the 80s or 90s, and Rick something was his name. And you'll see pictures. There's one in the credit union. I'm sure there's probably one here in this building somewhere. And he had one that had all the streets and the historic buildings named on it. Now, that was way back when, though. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much. I brought in some handouts that just a real short synopsis of our church, and on the end, you know, 2032 will be our 100th year, so, you know, come join us if I'm still here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I still do not enjoy public comment because it makes me very nervous, but I'm so opinionated I can't help myself. So I have three things I want to speak to. Number one is there seems to be a reluctance in...
Sorry, Robin, we all know you, but for the
I'm
benefit
sorry.
of the record.
My name is Robin Baker, and I am very appreciative, even though I comment constantly, of everything you do. So the three things. Number one, there seems to be a reluctance to broaden anything. There's a direction that feels like it's being taken. Things are presented. If you're in the audience, you have no idea what the heck is going on because things are not discussed. I mean, they're not even described. So that if you're out there, you really don't know anything. And then I'm reading the goals and I see a renaissance something. And I'm thinking, okay, now I have to call Michael, which he, I'm sure, would love to avoid, and find out what the heck that goal is. Because for me, these goals are almost meaningless. I support what Blair is saying about giving more explanation to him, details, so that I don't have to be speaking with Michael all the time, maybe meeting with you individually, seeing, you know, what you have to say. Okay, the second thing is I did speak with Michael. I sat down with him and asked him how many grants had been awarded, and that was last week's email to all of you, that there were 3 grants. There's more than 500 houses in the historic district, and in the last 5 years, we think there's been 3 grants. Why is not specific data collected? How hard is that? We should know exactly how much money has gone out into the community with the grant program, how many people have used that money to do what with their houses. I don't even know why there's a question about the map. How are we going to generate interest in the historic district if it's not visible? I understand being electronically inclined. I get that. I'm not. It's very difficult, and I did go on to the award-winning map, which only shows the roof of my house. And when Courtney talked with me about how to observe my house to see if it was historically appropriate, I'm supposed to stand on the sidewalk and look at the front door. I can go on Google Maps and look, but I can't go on the award-winning map. So no matter what anybody thinks, I don't think I'm the only person, regardless of age, who cannot manipulate the Boulder City website historic preservation information easily. That's the second thing. The third thing is that related to the data, because I hear about money. Well, that's going to cost money. We'll have to go talk to the realtors. We spend money, and I'm glad Matthew's here. I'm glad there's a representative here, but Courtney's on the phone also. There's no firm information. Well, I didn't research that. I have to look at that. Those are costs, no matter how you look at it, because when Courtney is here, she's on our dollar. And so what is the quality assurance? And it's not just Courtney, it's everything. How do we gauge what's working in the historic district preservation efforts and what is not? Because there's no baseline. And I don't think that a baseline is that difficult to take when only 3 people apply for a grant. I mean, it's free money for homeowners. The last thing that I want to say to you is that I do try to keep up with you and come to the meetings, and I do appreciate you. But I do believe there is a necessity for an advocate who is actually active in knowing the history. There are people in this community who are free, who can tell you about the flagpole, about the whatever park you're talking about. They know that information. They're never invited to share information. Why not? Why are we not taking whatever efforts we can to enlarge our community of people who are interested in historic preservation, rather than choosing one type path of, well, it's on the computer? Why are we not having people who are volunteers, because there are volunteer efforts that work for the city. So why are we not doing that with the historic district? The volunteers may not be exact in the location of the trees or the bollards or whatever needs to be put in place for the landscape inventory, but they can get it started. And today we were in a doctor's office and we were waiting, because I know that Broadbent's contract has been increased to $75,000. Which is neither here nor there, because I'm not going to look at the invoices and see the work or I don't know anything about the value or the outcomes. That's not my intent. But it would cost, the way I figured it, if you are paying somebody $40 an hour. I don't know how much the employees get an hour, but if you pay somebody $40 an hour, within a month you could do almost, if in each inventory you stood in front of a house or an area for 30 minutes. It would take 1 month and a little more than $10,000. So is not our community and documenting what we have that worth that value? Wherever the money may come from. And I know my time's up, so hey, have a good evening and bring Josie over.
Thank you. All right, nobody's on the phone. Everyone's spoken from the audience. This closes the final comment period. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.